Hello from Jerusalem and welcome to Bet Avichai. This is our last session in the series about the first printed books in Hebrew with Professor Shimon Iakerson. Today, to end the series, we will be discussing the repertoire of the Hebrew Incunabula. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tamar. Shalom Mirushalayim from Jerusalem. Today is our last meeting of the course of 4 lectures, and the meeting will be dedicated to the analysis of the Hebrew Incunabula repertoire and to the brief history of the further development of Hebrew printing in the 16th century. I would like to start like this. The famous collector of Hebrew Incunabula, his collection of 33 items is kept today in the Institute of Oriental Manuscripts in St. Petersburg, Russia. His name is Professor Daniel Chwolson, 1819-1911, who wrote in his famous work Hebrew Old Printed Books. This book was published in Russian and in Hebrew at the end of 19th century. So he wrote, "The Englishman once said, the amount of soap consumed by some people during the year can serve as a measure of their cultural level. With great right, we think we can say that the measure of the spiritual development and spiritual needs of a given people is the number of books that have been created and assimilated by them in a certain time." So, and now let's make an examination of the repertoire of the Hebrew Incunabula. I decided to do it like this way. I want to show you the catalogue of the biggest collection of Hebrew Incunabula in the world. This is a collection of Jewish Theological Seminary of America. This catalogue of 2 volumes, the first volume is Italy, and the second volume is Spain and Portugal and Turkey, contains the description of 127 editions in 217 copies and fragments. And I'm very proud of this book, really. It took me 10 years to prepare this catalogue, and it was published here in Jerusalem in Mechon Shoken in the year 2004. By the way, I got this copy to show you it today from the Institute, and I was told that till today it's possible to buy this book in the Shoken Institute and also in the Yad Shniya bookshop here in Jerusalem. When we started this project, it costs $1,000. Today it's 1,000 shekels. So I think it's really possible to get it. So my decision was just to take the biggest collection in the world and to show you all parts of this collection. It means mainly the whole Incunabula that we really know today, with the exception of 3-5 editions. Now, we are starting, of course, with the holy text, Bible. Bible, 32 editions. Italy, 19 editions. And we are talking about Bible alone. It's very important, only Bible editions. It might be Biblia Hebraica, the whole text of the Bible. It might be Pentateuch Torah with 5 scrolls and Haftarot, Torah with Targum, 5 scrolls Haftarot, and single books of Bible like Psalms, Proverbs, Yov. So together it's 19 editions in the library of the Jewish Theological Seminary. Bible with Commentary, 8 editions from Italy. It goes with Rashi, with David Kimchi, with Emmanuel of Rome, with Levi ben Gershom, with Yosef Kara, and again with David Kimchi. For example, Rashi we understand, but the Emmanuel of Rome, it's a Proverbs with commentary of him. Spain and Portugal, 13 editions. Bible alone, it's also complete Biblia Hebraica and Torah with Haftarot and 5 scrolls, and single books. With Spain and Portugal, as you understand today, we have a problem because a lot of books we have in fragments. So if you have fragment of Torah text, you cannot understand, is it a fragment from the Pentateuch, from Torah itself, or it's a fragment from the whole Bible. And for example, if you have a fragment from prophets also, it's possible that it is Torah with Haftarot, that it's part of Haftarot, or it's the whole Bible, or it's only prophets. But in general speaking, it's 13 editions. Bible with Commentary, it's 6 editions. And it's also Rashi, of course, David Kimchi, Proverbs with commentary of Ibn Yahya, and Levi ben Gershom, and the commentary of Hameiri. What should I say? We know that Johann Gutenberg started his work, or his first famous work, with 42 lines Bible. So he started from Bible text. But in Italy, the Bible text was not in the first line that was published. And like that in the history of Hebrew printing also. Complete Biblia Hebraica was printed in Italy, I want to repeat it, only in 1488 by Yoshua Sancina. So, and the first edition of biblical text with commentary of Kimchi is a text of Psalms of the 1477. The second part is Halacha. So Bible, after that Halacha. Halacha, 30 editions. In Italy, 13 editions. First of all, it's editions of Turim, Arba'a Turim of Yaakov ben Asher, or all Arba'a Turim together or separately. Or Chaim, Yoreh De'ah, Choshen HaMishpat, Even HaEzer. After that, Mishneh Torah by Maimon, Sefer Mitzvot Gadol, and other books like Responsa of Rabbi Shlomo ben Adret, or Sha'ar HaGmul, or Sefer Agur by Landau, or Sefer Chazon, or Sefer Kol Bo. It's very interesting edition. Maybe you remember that we don't know who and when printed this edition, but we exactly know, or we pretty sure that it was done in 15th century and in Italy. Spain, Portugal, and Turkey, 17 editions. Also Arba'a Turim, Yoreh De'ah, Even HaEzer, Choshen HaMishpat, Orach HaChaim, also Mishneh Torah, Mada, Ahava, Uzmanim, Hagdama, introduction to the Mishneh Torah, as a separate edition, and other books like Abu Darham, Halichot Olam, Orchot Chaim, and Hilchot Harif, a short Talmud, small Talmud. It's important to underline that the book Arba'at Turim, book that was a basis for the Shulchan Aruch, that was printed, of course, late in 16th century. But in general, Arba'at Turim was a very, very popular book, because in this book, Yaakov ben Asher used different traditions, halachic traditions, and brought together Sephardic and Ashkenazic traditions. So this book was readable and acceptable also in Sepharad and also in Italy. Mishneh Torah was published also as a whole book, all 14 books, in Italy, and parts of it in Spain and Portugal. Babylonian Talmud and Mishnah, 20 editions. Italy, 11 editions. Individual tractates with Rashi commentary, Tosafot, and Piskei Tosafot. We have tractates like Berachot, Betzah, Ketubot, Gittin, Hulin, Niddah, Bava Kama, Bava Metzia, Shabbat, and the edition of Mishnah with commentary by Maimonides, and single tractate of Mishnah, it's Tractate Avot. Spain and Portugal, 9 editions. Single Talmudic tractates with Rashi commentary, it's Berachot, Yoma, Beitza, Hagiga, Ketubah, Kiddushin, Berachot, Gittin, and Hulin. The complete Talmud was never printed in the 15th century. All tractates printed in Italy were printed only by one family. And of course you understand that it is Soncina family. By Yehoshua Shlomo ben Israel Natan Soncina, and by Gershom ben Moses Soncina. Yehoshua Solomon Soncina also printed the Mishnah in Naples in 1492. Now, the fourth part is Bible commentaries. By the way, talking about the Talmud, it's very important to understand that we don't have complete editions from Spain and Portugal, but we have rather good fragments of it, and on the basis of these publications, we can understand where tractates were really studied at that time in Italy and in Spain and Portugal. It's not like a, manuscript. You cannot print something that's not in use, that it will be not in a market, it will be not sold. So Bible commentaries, 15 editions. I underline this, Bible commentaries without biblical text. Italy, it's 10 editions. It's Nachmanides commentary, Levi ben Gershom's commentary, of course Rashi commentary, and Avraham ibn Ezra commentary. Spain and Portugal, 5 editions. Of course starts with Rashi, and David Kimchi, and Nachmanid, and Bachya commentary. There is no doubt that Rashi's commentary was the first and the most popular. Talking about prayer books, including also Haggadah Shel Pesach, we can say that in JTS we have 9 editions. 8 editions from Italy. It's Tefilat Yachid, Haggadah Shel Pesach, Machzor, Seder Tachanunim, Slichot, and prayer book with Haggadah and Pirkei Avot, and another edition of Machzor. From Spain and Portugal, we have only one edition. It's Machzor Leyom HaKippurim. Very interesting, elegant edition. I am sorry I don't have pictures of it, but it's oblong like this book, that it was possible to put on a pocket immediately, that, you know, like a time on Inquisition, I don't know. But it's only one copy that we have today. Linguistics, it's dictionaries and grammar books. 6 editions. Dictionaries, it's first of all Sefer HaShorashim, the Book of Roots by David Kimchi. It's 3 editions. And Sefer HaAruch by Natan ben Yechiel of Roma. Talking about the grammar, it's 2 editions, Makre Dardeke and Petach Devarai. So you can see that Sefer HaShorashim by Kimchi it's only one linguistic work that was printed 3 times in such a short period. Firstly in Roma, as you remember, and twice in Naples, with a difference of few months only. The first edition was printed in August of 1490, from August to September, and the second edition was printed on February of 1491. One by Sanchina family and one by Eliezer Gunzenhauser. Herschel Sanchina and Eliezer Gunzenhauser. Ethical editions. It's 6 books. Bechinat HaOlam by Yedaya Hapnini, Nofet Sufim by Rabbi Yehuda Meser Leon, Mivchar HaPninim, ascribed to Solomon ibn Gabirol, Even Bochen by Kalonimus ben Kalonimus, and Chovot HaLevavot by Bachya ibn Pakuda. Worth adding to this list are 2 small books of Rabbeinu Yonah Gerundi, Sefer HaIr'ah and Sod HaTeshuvah, which were printed together with Sefer Halichot Olam by Yehoshua ben Yosef Halevi. So not separate editions, but still these texts. Pay attention. Now I don't say what was printed in Italy and what was printed in Spain and Portugal, because all these editions were printed only in Italy. Bella Letters, 3 editions. Edition of Machbarot of Emmanuel Harome, very important book of like Dante or Boccaccio of Hebrew culture or Jewish culture in Hebrew language, and 2 editions of Meshal HaKadmani by Isaac ibn Sahula. All these books were printed by Gershom Sanchina. Machbarot were printed twice in the 15th century and in the beginning of 16th century, and after that it was forbidden by Shulchan Aruch not to read, not to print, not to copy, not to use, not to have it at home, and so later on it was printed only, if I'm not wrong, at the end of 17th century probably. History, folk stories, it's 2 editions, Sefer Eldad Hadani and Sefer Yosifon. Philosophy, also 2 editions. It's Moreh Nevuchim, from the print of Roma, and Sefer HaIkkarim by Yosef Albo. Science, also 2 editions. The Canon, HaKanon HaGadol by Avicenna, the principles of the very famous encyclopedia, medicine encyclopedia. And as I said already, it was only one full edition of this important medical encyclopedia in the 15th century. And the Principles of Astronomy, Almanac for the year 5257. So now we can see, what do we have? We can see that almost all, all important books of Jewish culture were printed. And we see that the difference between Italy, Spain, and Portugal was that in Spain we can see only commentaries to the Bible and Halakha and Talmud. The reading interest, maybe because it was a really last period of our life in Spain and Portugal, probably because of it, it was shorter. So the taste of readers in Italy was very wide, and we see books like Immanuel Haromi and Mashal HaKadmoni and scientific books, and a lot of commentaries like Rabbi Levi ben Gershom, and grammar, etc., etc. And we understand that it was in use not only in Jewish hands, but in the hands of Hebraists, Christian Hebraists, and for example, of Vatican. The collection of Vatican Library is very rich, and as we know, Hayom, they bought Hebrew books. So it was like that. Italy, a big possibility to get books in any kinds, and Spain and Portugal is only for classical, let's say, classical Hebrew monuments. Talking to 16th century, I would like to show you today more pictures from the books of 16th century, and not to make, because it should be special, course for 16th century books. But let's say, from the certain point of view, the 16th century in the development of Hebrew printing is no less important stage than the period of the Incunabula, because it was in this time that the scales of the book market finally tipped in favor of printed books in relation to manuscripts, and the book acquired the form that has survived without changes to these days. 2 important things: the title page that we don't have in Incunabula books, and the numbering of pages, not quires, and not follows, but pages. Over the next 100 years, Jewish printing significantly expanded its border and spread widely throughout the world. Not only Italy, Turkey, but in Italy a lot of places, and Turkey a lot of places, Morocco, Poland, Bohemia, Germany, Egypt, Palestine, and many other places. It united disparate communities and supplied readers with a significant amount of edited and verified texts. It should be noted that in addition to significant expansion of the range of printed books, the calculation has also increased significantly, from 150 or 300 copies in 15th century up to 3,000 or even more copies from the half to end of the 16th century. Many classical monuments of Judaism to these days have retained the form of presentation of the material that was developed in the 16th century. The most important achievements of Jewish book printing in the 16th century is that Jewish printers take orders of publication of works in Latin script, in Latin language, in Latin scripts, and Christian printers are actively involved in the publication of Jewish books. First of all, this applies to the Venetian typographers Daniel Bomberg, Marco Antonio Justinian, Juan de Gara, and Aloysius Bragadin, who became literally symbols of this process. Antwerp resident Daniel Bomberg, 1483 in question, 1553, was the first of the Christian printers who managed to arrange the printing of Jewish books. It may be noticed that the famous Venetian printer Aldus Manutius also made an attempt around 1501 to print a Hebrew text, but this attempt failed. Bomberg's printing house existed in Venice from about 1513 to 1549. He himself left Venice, but his printing house was in motion. And it printed about 230 editions. Many of these books were published for the first time, and the Bomberg editions of the Bible, the Babylonian and Jerusalem Talmuds are still standard examples of typographical art of today. He published Mikraot Gedolot in 1517, and it was so popular so that in 1524 and 1525 he published the second edition of Mikraot Gedolot. He published Talmud Bavli twice, and the first edition is 1520, 1523. And he published first time so he published the whole Talmud first time, of course, and he published the first edition of Talmud Yerushalme, Jerusalem Talmud, in 1523, 1524. I would say that what's the most important in his publication of Talmud Bavli, especially, is the numbering of followers. And from his edition until today, we have the same form, the same shape of the Talmud's treatise, and we can citate every page on every follower, every leaf, on the basis of the Talmud of Bomberg. Now I would like to show you some very, very rare pictures of this period. Just a second. Here we are. This is a commentary of Ramban on the Pentateuch that was printed in Pizarra by Gershom ben Moses Sanchina. Probably you remember I said that the Gershom Sanchina was the only one from this family who continued his printing activities in 16th century. And now you can see the title page already, and it's like a colophon that we can read in first page. And in this colophon, by the way, it's very interesting. He wrote about the beginning of printing and the end of printing. And now we can see that Gershom ben Moses Sanchina started in the 1st of Tevet and end in the 3rd of Sivan. And he printed the book of 178 folios in the size of folio, the big one, and it was printed in 5 months, yes? Tevet, Shvat, Adar, Nisan, Iyar. And the Sivan is only beginning. And you can see his very famous frame. By the way, this book from the collection of Manfred and Anna Lehmann of New York. It's a very important private collection. It was my dream to start to make a description of private collections of Incunabula and 16th century books, because I think it's really very important to put private collections in the world of Hebrew book. And for example, till today, I know 2 or 3 very important private collections with about 60, 70, 80 Incunabula, and no catalogs. I wanted to do it, but still it's like a project till today. Just a second. Oh. This is a tractate Pesachim from the Babylonian Talmud with Rashi and Tosafot. And we have only fragment from this book, but it was printed by brother Ibn Nachmias in Constantinople. So you remember in the previous lecture I said that it was a gap of about 10 years between the book of Arba'at Turim that was printed in 1493 and their book activities that they started after 1503. So this is one of the first books that they printed in 16th century. What is very interesting for us here, that it was printed not only with Rashi commentary, but also with Tosafot. And it was not a tradition of Sephardic Jew, and not in Sephardic treatises of 15th century, you cannot see things like that, but it was done by the influence of Sanchina editions, for sure. And in a previous lecture, I said that now today we understand why they didn't print books for 10 years. And we know that it was 10 years war like this between Turkey and Europe in bringing paper. They were short of paper. They cannot establish printing house and print books because they have no material for it. And in the beginning of 16th century, they started it again. Of course, you understand that Tosafot it's in small letters, not in a frame, but inside, near the text of tractates. So this is treatise Bechorot with Rashi, Tosafot, Piskei Tosafot, etc. And it's very famous first Bomberg edition. Very rare one. This is also Masechet Bechorot in Perush Rashi v'Tosafot, Piskei Tosafot, Venice. So you see, it's also the example of first edition of Bamberg, 1522. This is Also Masechet Eruvin in Perush Rashi, with the commentary of Rashi, with Tosafot, Piskei Tosafot, Perush HaMishnayot of Rabbeinu Asher, Nidpas Shenit, Imrav Iyun, printed second time, so this is a second edition, על ידי דניאל בומברג מאנטוורפן, כן? בשנת רפ"ח. So this is an example of the second edition of the Babylonian Talmud from Venice, 1528. This is absolutely another type of books, but it's very important also, and very important for our culture and for development of books in 16th century. It's a book of Psalms in Hebrew, Greek, Arabic, Aramaic, and with commentary in Latin language that was printed in Genoa by Pietro Porro in 1516. So this is one of the first examples of using Hebrew together with another languages and another types of letters, like Greek, for example. This is Masechet Eruvin. Just a second, sorry. This is another type. You can see it's Masechet Keritot. We are coming from the beginning of 16th century to the middle of 16th century. So you see this border, this frame. So Masechet Keritot in Perush Rashi, Vetosafot, and it was done also in Venice by Marco Antonio Justinian. And you can see this symbol of him, the temple. It was in all books of Marco Antonio Justinian. This is very nice edition of Ferrara. I like this man very much. Avraham Ibn, I don't know how to pronounce, Oski. He printed a lot of books in a lot of subjects. This subject is Galacha, for example, but his symbol was in the middle. You can see it's like with citation from Bible, of course. I don't see it. Yes, from Isaiah, if I'm not wrong, but very good one. So this is also from the collection of the Institute of Oriental Manuscripts and from the collection of Moshe Ariel Friedland that had the very fine and important collection of Hebrew Incunabula, but mostly he was famous because of probably in his time, the biggest private collection in the world of the books of 16th century. Sefer Tziyoni, Beur al-Hatara, Commentary of the Pentateuch, it's Cremona, 1560. Here you can see, like, if you remember, we saw it together in the Incunabula, that this is, in Russian, it's written that it's approbation of the Russian censorship from the year 1838 with the name of Rabbi Nachum Rabinovich that made the Haskama to use this book. And also it's from the collection of Friedland. It is another example. It's a book that was printed in Prague, and it's just very interesting to show that in Prague they came back in 16th century. They came back to the letters of Ashkenazic type, not the type of Sanchina letters, but the Ashkenazic type looks like, if you remember, like Piova Disaka Arba Turim, for example. So here we are. My idea was to show you in 16th century, to show you the many another places of Hebrew printing, to show some examples of books, and to underline that we started a new era, and the Hebrew book became a part of the European book market for sure. And in this time, manuscripts became less popular than printed books, and maybe it is the reason, for example, that in the Institute of Hebrew Paleography here in Jerusalem, they decided that they are going to make descriptions of Hebrew manuscripts only until the year 1540, because after this period, printed book became the main source of Jewish knowledge. I would like to thank you for your attention, and as we say when we finished, the study of Gemara or whatever, v'hashar zil gmor, and the rest go and study by books. I believe in the power of book. Thank you very much again, and here is the Catalogue of Jewish Theological Seminary that I want to show once more.